Okay, so we are recording now on the cloud. Those of you that are tuning in, my guest today on this podcast is a guy named Jack Hughes. He is not known as a musician, although maybe someday he will be. Maybe like a joke comedian, a joke musician. He's a very funny guy. I wanted to have him on because when he lived in Connecticut and we saw each other and frequented the same locations. He was a very funny improv comedian, actor, and he would always make me giggle like a little girl at Whole Foods. So, Jack Hughes, thank you for taking some time out of your night.
Yeah, man. Anything for a former coworker, you know? Or when you work together with someone for like less than 5 months and they have a podcast, you do it. That's
Yes.
just those are the rules, you know. So
Well, I mean,
consider it just, my civic duty. You know, no worries. Happy to be here.
so what are you doing? How's Chicago? You just moved out there.
Yeah, I just moved here. It's been like I moved here at the end of the summer. Got here September. Put all my stuff in a rented Escalade. Drove here by myself after living in California for a year.
How cool was it driving the Escalade?
Weird, cool, funny, very funny at first to me, and then I've never driven a car that size.
Did you feel like one of the big timers?
Yeah, like by the time I was like, an hour into Pennsylvania, I was like, I'm the boss of the road. I understood, like, you always hear like the stories about, jerks and big trucks, but you're up high and, it's hard not to feel powerful. But they pick up speed in a way that I wasn't anticipating and then stopping.
Really?
Okay, yeah,
really?
Well, you just get going and then you gotta stop. It's just like you're stopping a boat,
Do you have to stop though because you're in an Escalade? Don't you just get to go through the lights and?
I thought so, but road work on the major highways in America beg to differ.
What's Chicago like right now? Because so much of it is based on being able to go do things or see things or experience things.
Yeah, I mean, it's been weird. I mean, I was still so new here even kind of before this all started, and I was still sort of trying to figure out like what I was going to do here, kind of. And unfortunately, most of that meant looking for a job.
Did you find one?
Yeah, I'm doing I got some desk job. I got like some temp agency job full time. So it's fine. I'm happy to have that. And then as soon as I was like ready to kind of hit the ground running, the world shut down. So, but it is what it is. But, I mean, it's cool. I mean, what I have seen is super interesting and kind of like DIY, but there's establishment and stuff too. So like that DIY thing can like build to something if that's what you want, or you can kind of just keep it to yourself. So that's just I live in a house with like an improv and sketch team too. So I've been like around a lot of it, and it's just been cool. There's a good energy, good vibe here.
Yeah.
Sure.
Let's back up a little bit. How did you? So I know that you, for people that don't know, again, shout out to my mom and dad who are watching. How did you get into improv? Because you got, correct me if I'm wrong, most of your experience and training in Connecticut.
All training and experience. All training and experience happened in Hartford. I didn't do anything like close to anything until I was 24, like 3 days after my 24th birthday.
Wow.
I'm gonna be 29 in a week now.
Not to brag.
What?
Not to brag. You're gonna be 29.
Not to brag. But yeah, I didn't do anything in college. Didn't even know you could do improv in college. Loved comedy growing up and stuff, but was not a thing I thought I was allowed to do. I just was like, that's a different path. You're not allowed to be who I am and whatever. Some big major self-doubt stuff about it. So did the whole college thing, got a degree in something I didn't want to do. I moved to Colorado to live with a friend who was a writing partner. For some reason thought we'd be able to write and sell a pilot living in Colorado Springs, Colorado, which was stupid. I moved back.
What was the idea of the show?
It's still something. It's just like a post-college kind of depression story, like friendship story, coming of age type deal. I still kind of kick it around, but because I'm somehow still in that, some feeling in that stage of my life, unfortunately. Sort of a long process. And then I moved back, and then like right before my 24th birthday, and then on my 24th birthday, I had lunch with my mom, and uh, was just like really just totally lost. Had no idea. I knew I thought I wanted to do comedy. Just had no idea like how to get started or anything. And like literally just after like one conversation, my mom was like, "Have you like just Googled it?"
Yeah.
Of course I hadn't. And I found CT Improv, SEATEA, just for everyone so they can Google it. And I was in a class 3 days later, and met my like a couple of like really people I have still know to this day, and have like totally shepherded me along in the process. And I was just kind of instantly kind of ingrained, and yeah, hit the ground running from there.
What when you were thinking about what you wanted to, change gears and because you mentioned comedy, but you didn't mention a strong desire to do improv at first. So did you
Mm-hmm.
have to make that? Was that just something where you just happened to get into improv before you got into, like, was that just what happened, or were you like, there's all these different ways of doing comedy? How about improv?
Yeah, kind of a mix of just like it was what was available, and in my research, there's plenty of improvisers who I loved growing up. I think when I was younger, I latched more to like TV and stand up. Like I was Simpsons and like Bill Cosby tapes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
as like a kid, were just like the only like I just wore them out. And then yeah, I mean, it was just what was available in Hartford, Connecticut is
Right.
limited as is, and that's what was there. And I mean, I'm grateful that I found that.
Yeah, it's funny, a lot of these stories that I hear doing this, like a lot of people just happen to walk in, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to just ignorant to the whole thing and walk into like a really good school or a really good network. And it's
Yeah.
like you could have gone to, the Funny Bone. Not that there's anything wrong with the Funny Bone, but you could have gone into
Well,
like the Funny Bone stand up class 101, and
yeah.
then you could have been like, I guess I don't want to do comedy.
Yeah, no, I spent a lot of time doing a lot of like baseless research,
Yeah.
like just just stuff that was leading me to stuff like that, and
Yeah.
I was like, that doesn't feel right. And then
No.
I don't know, I literally in my first class met Laura Manaswich and Julia Pistel, who if
Are incredible.
you don't know them, look them up. They're the best, and like just instantly felt like I found something resembling like my people or
Yeah,
whatever.
sure.
um, and yeah, it's just it's just a different. If it hadn't been such a like cool and welcoming and like nurturing place, there's such a good chance I like turn around and walk out the door.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
just it would took so long to get there in the first place that
Yeah.
if if it went bad, I could have never thought about it again, kind of thing.
It's funny when you talked about like TV and stand up, it's a lot of those people were improvisers. Well, actually, let me take a step back. It's fun to see who was what, and it's
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
sometimes it's I find maybe this is just the comedians, the stand up comedians of this era. A lot of them came from sketch and improv, and less of them came from I'm just going to start doing stand up until it works. Like it seems like those are the stories that you hear from like the people like Dave Chappelle or the people
Mm-hmm.
like the old timey.
Yeah, the older system.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because like then improv like kind of blew up, and it became like what looked like the only way to like break through or something was to do that, and like the UCB bubble and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, totally. I know I spent like when I first started to do it, I like spent hours just trying to figure out like what the path was. You know what I mean? There's such an interesting thing about trying to figure out who did what and how. And then it took me a really long time to realize that it doesn't really it doesn't really
It's
matter.
okay. Yeah.
It doesn't really matter. Because like every story is really different, and they all like really hinge on like one random thing.
Yeah.
And it's just like you're not gonna like tic tac your toe, like just like line up your things
Yeah.
perfectly ever. It's just gonna happen or it's not, kind of thing. Or just I don't know, just to go and do it and put your best foot forward, and the right thing will happen, kind of thing. like
It
good
kind of
faith.
seems like the only things that you can really stack on top of each other are things that get you exposure, right? So like that definitely works when it comes to um what was it? This is a perfect example. We were watching Curb last night, and this was a
Mhm.
really. Do you remember? Are you a Curb fan?
Yeah.
Do you remember the episode with where Larry the Leon and his family, the blacks, are staying in his house, and that's the name of
Yeah.
the family,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he gives the aunt a hug, and it's like 5 seconds,
Uh-huh.
and then something happens after he's been hugging her for 5 seconds. Okay. The point is that the dude from New Girl, Nick, like one of the
Yeah. Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
from New Girl, is like has a really filthy line in that show, and at like for this one scene, and then like that became a conversation that we had last night. My wife and I were like, oh, yeah, like when you're one of those, like either you're a comedian or you're a sketch person or you do improv, like you have to do little gigs and then slowly build them up. But I think what you were
Ooh.
talking about is more of like the training. Like it really doesn't matter if you train in Chicago or versus New York versus California. There's so many people trying to get the same thing.
Yeah. And I am grateful I did my what I consider like my base level training where I did,
Yeah.
because when I had to kind of go back down and start at ground one or level one at like in a bigger city, I like instantly was like, this is the worst experience I
Yeah.
could having possible, because at that level it's all you're a like a number on a spreadsheet for them. Like you're just $450 for 8 weeks. Like, and
Yeah.
all they care about is getting that again for the next level. Like it was so bad. And I know, because I literally like I was like 3 weeks into a class with I think my second class with Julia. I've been doing improv for like less than 2 months, and I just emailed Julia. I was just like, how do I make it? And she's like, she was like, stay after with me after class and we can talk.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parts of me where I'm just like that. Realizing now is like that's the craziest thing to do. But she did give me really good advice, which was to stay there,
Yeah.
which I was selfish, I think, maybe on her own part, because she wanted me to stick around, but was totally right, because to have moved when I wanted to originally would have been like such a disaster. It's not that other
Right.
moves haven't not worked out, but that like I don't know what I'd be doing if I had done that then.
Do you think there's obviously for the people on the inside that do this professionally or aspire to do this professionally, do you think there's like this um I don't know what the right word to describe it is. Maybe there's like this facade that to be successful in comedy, you have to just like have it, and that there's no work that you can put in, right? Because like if you and the reason I say that is that like I'm a big fan of like um I don't know, like the people that are coming up now that were formerly improvisers, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the dudes from like what's his name, John Mulaney and his crew, and well, he was the sketch writer, but
He was stand up that sketch
yeah.
then whatever he's doing now. But
But
like
I
Nick
guess like
Kroll is kind of like an interesting.
yeah, it seems like the big legendary figures, the idea is that those people have it, but what they don't realize is that there's a lot of craft that goes into it.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think the people who make it to the top are the people who have it and do and are like students of the game,
Mm,
kind of thing. I think it really does take both. Like, I mean, I don't want to like, yeah, it's a weird thing to like kind of wrestle with, because it's like you don't take a class like that if you don't think you're funny. Like
right.
that's the other part of this. It's like to do any of this, like you have to deep down think that you're funny, which is like a really crazy thing to think.
Right.
Um, just I don't know. It's just like you laughter is involuntary, but you never really know the true intention behind it sometimes. Or I don't
Right.
know. There's just a difference between like making your buddies laugh and like making strangers laugh, or being like the dude in your office that people think is aces. You know what I mean? Who
Right.
they
Yeah.
are like, you should take a class, and they do, and they're like not actually interested in like comedic structure or like just like the theory, I guess, of it, because
Yeah.
that's the like improv's all made up, but there's like it's a science experiment essentially.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for a few minutes. I remember one time before I took, I didn't take intro. Before I took one-on-one, I asked you at Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
Great spot, by the way.
Sure.
If you haven't had their grape leaves.
I will say, having gone and worked at a different Whole Foods, the Whole
Yeah.
Foods we worked at is pretty great compared
Yeah.
to some of the other ones across the country.
I
So,
see that guy, the meme guy. I want to say it's the Trump guy. The not so nice guy. I see him every once in a while when I go visit my, because we moved to Cromwell, but I
okay.
I'll go up to West Hartford and I'll see him just walking around being angry.
Mm-hmm.
I bet
Yeah.
he's having a field day now.
I'm sure he really doesn't want to wear his mask.
I asked you once, like, what, if this whole thing of improvisation, improv, I'm just going to improv, is that you are going to take something and turn it into, if you could take one thing that's spontaneous and then turn it into this whole world, how do you practice something like that? Because for an outsider, there's an inherent contradiction, right? Like you can't practice something that you don't know what is or haven't experienced before. I
Mm-hmm.
obviously know the part of that answer now, but can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, part of my it just you just have to do it over and over and over and over and over again in front of absolutely no one with the people you're going to be doing it with. Like, so for me, like I took a couple classes, and then I met Matt Francis in a class, and
He's so funny.
he's the best. He asked me and someone else from a class we were all in, Kristen Parker, to be in, just to come to like a draw, just like a kind of casual, kind of had a practice group kind of thing, and we ended up joining that team. We were like an indie team. There weren't house teams yet. There wasn't a theater yet in Hartford. And yeah, we would just go to this guy Eric's house like once a week for
This guy Eric.
this, yeah, Eric Hartung, love
Oh,
him.
okay. He
He's
has
my
a last
neighbor.
name.
He has a last name, Eric Hartung. Gave me lots of rides, so I just appreciate that. We would go to his house and we would warm up, do a couple things we'd learned in classes recently. Each person would take a turn like running it, but then at a certain point you just line up in like essentially a stranger's living room at that point, and you just line up and pretend you're doing a show, and you have no idea if what you're doing is good. But what you start to learn is that like what makes each other laugh, what like different pairings worked, like what structure works, like what do you lean into typically?
Yeah.
Where are all the things you're doing that you're not even realize you're doing, and then how do you like shape that into a show? How do you take like the things you're leaning into, whether that's like picking your format or picking just, I mean, whatever it is, whatever you, and then you just pray to God that when you're doing the show, you have one of the good ones.
Yeah.
That's all it is. I mean, it's such a crapshoot. It's art for sure. And when it's done well, it's like maybe my favorite art form in the world.
Yeah.
Most of the time it's not. It's kind of not that. And that's also kind of the nice thing about it, is that it's chaotic and it's live and it's growing in front of you.
One of the buy-ins that I don't know if it's a buy-in, but it's like you have to make peace with this fact as an audience member, because the first time I saw improv, my wife said we should go to, because she was really into stand-up comedy, and she's always been like a geek about that, the way that I am about guitar stuff and watches. And that. So we went there, and I was like, oh, it's going to be like Whose Lines It Anyway, because that was the experience that I had with improv. And what I realized is that there's this buy-in where you have to accept that your brain as an audience member is going to have to give a little bit. You're going to have to do a little bit of, okay, they don't have any props. Okay, the backdrop stays the same. Okay, I have to see this almost as sketch comedy, even though it's not. Because when you look at it through a sketch comedy lens and it's done well, it's better than any episode of Saturday Night Live I've ever seen. Like watching what was Patrick's group, the
Shed.
Shed.
Yeah, Shed's the best.
When I the first time I saw them, that was maybe the third or fourth time I'd been to the theater, and it was the I've ever seen.
Yeah, like a OG lineup Shed set when they were popping. That was like magic was in the air, man. It was just, and that's an example of just like all those people just knew where they not just like where they fit into the team, but where they fit into like their form structure, because they had a pretty hard structure. It's kind of, I haven't done improv in long enough to even probably explain it, but improv is tricky. It's like it can be a hard thing to watch. I'm notorious for kind of having bummed out faces, like a bummed out look on my face sometimes at the theater. I don't mean to, but it's just, it's hard. It's hard. It's really hard and really scary sometimes. And I have never not gotten a stomach ache 5 minutes before a set. Like, it's insane to think that you're going to go do that and people just paid money to watch you.
Yeah. It's absolutely true. When I try not to think about that part.
But please support live art.
So let's talk about kind of like what the idea would be now if the world was opened up. So how is Chicago different than Connecticut?
I think for me, it's just less about how it's different and more just about like how I'm probably a little different. I'm like,
so you're too good for Connecticut, is what you're saying.
I'm too good for Connecticut twice. I've come back and left twice.
That's right.
Just I want that on the record. No, I've been kind of like lost on this like artistic journey a little bit anyways. Like it took me a long time to get going, and then I kind of put everything I had into it, and now like, I'm a little like, I had to take a step back and just kind of reassess. And part of me, I never really want to pay money for like an improv class again. I don't like want to start over at the bottom again. For me, it's way more about like creating things on purpose now. I like learned I look at improv as like learning it's like the training montage of a movie or something like that. It's like failure after failure after failure until you're so comfortable with failing that it's like you're fine. And for me, there was just a point of I kind of stopped having fun doing improv, and I stopped having fun trying to make it up. And I felt, I don't know, because I like when I was younger, I way more wanted to just write. I wrote like a Family Guy spec script when I was like in 5th grade.
Nice.
It's bad, but and it's only like 7 pages written by hand. But the structure is there. The structure is there.
How was your handwriting in 5th grade?
Bad. It's still bad. It's worse now. But so I don't know. Part of me is like it's hard for me to get to this part without sounding like just like a pretentious douchebag. Sorry.
Do it.
But I just like want to make stuff from. I have made like a short film that I wrote and I made with my friends Courtney, who directed it, and Drew Bly, Courtney Dunham and Drew Bly. So stuff like that has always been a little bit more. There were a couple like almost takeoff, like launching some video stuff in Connecticut with CT, but kind of just it takes a while. I think they're doing it now, which is awesome. That's always been the thing. Like, I remember like when the Lonely Island started to pop off and just like early internet culture, I was always just like, man, these videos are so like, this is they're thing.
So good. Yeah.
And getting more into movies in college and stuff like that. I just like am a little more drawn to like acting and filming, writing and making stuff for me to act in at this point.
I think there's still a lot of room for that, but it's so funny because it's all like in hindsight, right? You see the Lonely Island and you're like, this is so genius and so stupid and so good.
Yeah.
Like their characters are the most ridiculous, stupid, not funny characters, but they're so serious when they make music, and they know when to get so descriptive, and the music is so well made, and all the celebrities jump on it, and it's really good stuff.
Yeah, the Lonely Island has always bridged that gap of like, there are things like rap isn't the joke.
Right,
it's
exactly.
not funny that they're rapping. They're rapping pretty well. It's like proficient rap. The joke is always like they're doing sketch comedy through proficient rapping. Like,
yeah.
and I think there's other versions of that kind of thing that I don't think doesn't do that at all. And it feels like really awkward. I'm like, what are we all laughing at? Like,
Exactly.
Are we rapping at the white people doing the rhyming? Because that's icy.
They're nifty. They're nifty.
Yeah, oh boy, that's something I can bop to.
What was your first experience like to Los Angeles? Because that's where you went, right?
Yeah, so I moved to LA first. First comedic experience.
Well, you said yeah, I kind of skipped ahead, and you said, yeah, I left Connecticut twice. So I want to know what that first experience was like, leaving Connecticut and trying to, I don't know if you want to say you were trying to make it, or you're trying to, plant your seed somewhere else. What was that like?
No, I mean, I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable admitting now that my ambition is to like make this the way I make money. I can't really imagine. It's tough to see me making money in another way somehow. I'm not, I'm not particularly passionate about much else. Or in terms of just like work, I don't know. It's just not my corporate stuff's not my deal. Yeah, no, I was definitely moving to make it, and then I got there, and I I mean, the thing about LA was it was really more of like a logistical error, more so than anything else. Like I moved there without a car. like, I was just like, no, I can do it. There's Uber. Like, I did like one Google search. I was like, can you live in LA without a car? And one out of like 100 no's was like a sorta. And I was like,
Reddit is a dangerous place.
What?
So Reddit is a dangerous place. It'll give you ideas that
should not be making life decisions based on the things. Yeah, no, I don't know. And then so eventually I took a UCB improv class, and no offense to UCB, most of what I learned is based on like the UCB method and stuff. But
sure,
I just had like a super negative experience there, and like had a hard time connecting to anybody in my class because of it just felt different in a way that like I wanted it to, but then in a way that I was bummed out about. Like I was so burnt out on Connecticut stuff. Like I was still working at Whole Foods. I like moved up somehow, even though that was not the intention. You know what I mean? It's just like, I was like, oh my God, I'm like a full-time shift supervisor here. I'm here all the time. I'm like missing shows. Like this has to stop. And then for some reason, I really was at a fork in the road. I almost moved to Chicago.
Yeah.
I couldn't find I transferred to a different Whole Foods in LA, which was stupid. And then couldn't find a place to live in LA.
What are the Whole Foods customers like in LA?
Terrible. I mean, like, the store, it was more the store itself than the customers. The customers are terrible everywhere. Like,
right, yeah.
People treat retail employees like garbage. And,
yeah.
Think it's okay. But, also, it's what you'd expect, plastic people, somewhat famous people. It was in like the Valley too. So it's like,
who did you see? Who did you see?
Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy. That was a big one for me personally.
Cool. Yeah, he's cool.
Anthony Anderson. Skateboard legend Andrew Reynolds. That was a big one for me again personally. That's okay. If you like Tony Hawk Pro Skater, you'll know.
Was he in the video games?
Yeah, he's been in like all of them, I think.
Oh,
he's cool. There's other ones like John Voight.
Okay.
A lot of older celebrities
legend.
Yeah. Ed Begley Jr. Like once a week. Ed Begley Jr. was a regular. Ed Begley Jr. walked in. He was having 3 different conversations at once with the staff, and I was just like, "Whoa, I love Ed. So do I." But not necessarily as like a customer. I love him from Best in Show.
I guess if you're at if you're at a place like that, you could probably blend in as a celebrity. There's so many other, like, cause Kanye West is probably running around being Kanye West, and there's all this other stuff happening. And so as Ed Begley Jr., you can probably just chill at Whole Foods.
Yeah. I think the mega rich don't dare touch foot in the valley of
yeah.
But I know what you mean. But even like low level, there was like people from like 13th build people from like Netflix shows I would see, and like a couple people came up to them. I was like, okay, flex, like good for you. But yeah, no, the LA experience, like, it was what it was. I think that city is like a test, and I got some like bad luck personally out there. Like,
Sure.
I was in a rent scam essentially. Got fired from Whole Foods out there because I
Oh,
was never on time because I had to Uber to
you had to
work.
Uber
See how
everywhere.
it all just didn't work. See, it was just one fundamental misstep in front of another.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But not all in all the worst experience. I learned a lot. I still like going out there to visit. I have still friends out there and wouldn't mind having a reason to live there again.
The so if we could go back to Chicago, the thing that I've has always really attracted me to Chicago is it seems like it's a pretty good balance of artsy in college town and fine arts and just
Yeah,
like a fun interesting place to explore. There's actually a lot of classical guitar stuff happening out there. Generally, I mean, not this year, but
right.
yeah, no,
I don't
there's
think there's
definitely
much classical guitar happening anywhere. I don't
there's
think
all
that's
these online festivals now, and there's some of
right.
them are cool, but that's not going to happen. So you said you wanted to make a living doing this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's the dream? What's the dream gig?
I mean, I have like the realistic version and the unrealistic version.
Let's
The
start with
unrealistic
the
version.
unrealistic version first.
The unrealistic version is I write and produce my own things, and I'm like the next Seth Rogen. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like, that is like the dream. Like, just to find a way to be purely yourself while being like larger than life kind of thing. Like, because he's Seth Rogen is Seth Rogen in pretty much all of his movies, but they're always like about something else. Maybe that's not even like the best
he's
example
just a
because I like.
method actor. He's just a really good method actor.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, there's a couple different versions of it in my head. Even like a Jonah Hill kind of path where he's like funny, but he can do serious stuff and like
Yeah,
can. I don't know. There's a serious interest to me about doing like dramatic acting,
yeah,
despite doing nothing but comedy. Because if you've seen me do improv, I all I do is like work emotion into
yeah,
scenes and like
yeah.
take things hard and like overreact. So like that is the thing I have fun doing and exploring. So there's always been that pull to me to like try that side of things.
Yeah.
And then I would be happy if I was just like a writer on a show though too.
I really respect on like the more I get into this, the more I get into comedy, the just as an enthusiast, the more
Mm-hmm.
I realize that the people that I really respect are the people who are working a lot and working every day. Like Nick
Mm-hmm.
Kroll is probably the most
Yeah.
famous example of that. But I mean, like Todd Glass, I think he's awesome. There's a comedian I really like, Eddie Pepitone. He just flew from. He doesn't live in the Valley. He lives somewhere out there. I don't know. It's all
Mm-hmm.
California to me.
Yeah.
He lives somewhere out there, and he flew and did a gig at the Elbow Room in West Hartford
Really?
Center. Yeah, and filmed it there because he did. I don't know why he was at because he has his father lives in New York, but this guy is like a legend, and he's
Yeah.
been on like
Yeah.
Bob's Burgers a million times, and like he's
Yeah.
just been
Yeah.
around. He used to be in Conan's. He used to be the angry audience member that would yell at Conan when he was
Yeah.
on
Yeah. Yeah.
CBS.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like people like that are constantly working, that have real jobs and have to hustle. I respect those people more than the people who are chilling at their mansion and release a
Sure.
special every 5 years. Well, that's
Sure.
cool and everything, but I don't know. Like I feel like that's not really doing
Yeah.
much.
I mean, the idea of like, I don't know how any successful person is like expected to like do stand up comedy. It's like I don't really know what do they have to say or talk about. Like
Exactly.
their life is like very it's just like it's not realistic to anybody else's like purview.
Right.
But then I don't know that, but what you just described to me does sound kind of like depressing. Like
Yeah.
Eddie Pepitone's been in the game for a long time, and there's a if he's happy and he loves the grind of that, total. I respect that a ton.
Yeah.
That's why I've like never gone back to stand up. I like quit and like will not go back because I just know
Yeah.
it's not like what I actually wanted. Like the way you make that career work is like not what I want to do.
Right. Right. Right.
Just like
So,
that.
so are writing gigs in general more stable?
Yeah, I mean you live because you're like the rooms are all like in LA or New York
Right.
essentially. So you're just like, you just live there. You can have multiple, like, it seems like from what I can tell, it's like people are on a couple different shows usually. And then like once one's done, you move to the next and you just like do that. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I mean, for me, I've talked about this with friends a lot too. It's just like can you live with you not telling the joke? Like, can you live with somebody else
doing it? Yeah.
joke? And like, honestly, like push comes to shove, absolutely. Like, you're willing to pay me a lot of money for someone else to do my jokes at this point, right now. That's fine.
That's wonderful.
That's
You'll take that.
Eventually. I mean, I've heard lots of like, I think like Anthony Jeselnik, like kind of famously quit like the cushy Jimmy Fallon show job like after a year because he's just like, this isn't what I do. Like
wow.
Anthony Jeselnik is like such a singular voice, and like,
yeah,
the idea of him writing a joke for Jimmy Fallon sounds so psycho.
And what's her name? Ali Wong. She was a writer I know for a long time for a couple different things before doing her own stand-up thing.
Yeah, like Hannibal Buress too. Hannibal Buress was on like 30 Rock for a year, and he's like, why am I writing jokes for other people?
I met him at Bonnaroo.
Oh yeah.
He was it was so weird because he had performed the night before, and just in total Hannibal Buress fashion, just like you would imagine Seth Rogen, he's just himself.
Right.
And his arms are around two women. He's just hanging out at Bonnaroo around two women, just like, hey, I'm not going to do an impression, but he's just like, hey, what's going on? And I said, hey, I saw you last night. You were really great. He goes, oh, thanks, man. See you later. Just.
Perfect. What a gentleman.
Yeah. So what steps would you want to take in order to, or what steps do you have to take? Because right, I talk to a lot of musicians, right? So we talk about a lot of like the idea of you teach, and you write and record something, or you make a DVD, or not a DVD, but you get out there somehow, you produce something in addition to just doing what you're doing now. So for you, what would those steps be to go to the realistic dream?
Yeah, I think really it's like, I know the first thing I want to do is just take like a straight up acting class, like not a comedy thing. I already have, I know the one I'm gonna take. I just like need the world to open. But yeah, then that, and then I mean, I'm always writing. I'm always like kind of working on stuff slowly, piecing together like weird little. I'm working on it. I have the thing I want to do next. Unfortunately, the next step is like networking and like meeting the people who do all the things I don't do, which is like film and edit and lighting.
Sure.
All the filmed elements of making short films. But not impossible steps. It's new place. It still takes time just to meet the people. But getting into classes and doing stuff like that is kind of how you do that.
When you write something for you, I mean, or you can speak about writing and comedy in general, but for writing, do you write something and then wait for for lack of a better term, like the right deal to come along, right package, right people, right this, right that, or do you go actively seek out, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to handpick the people that do this with me? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty like I don't know. I'm not. I mean, right now, I'd probably work with like close to anybody. I mean, I'm just kind of desperate to like make something again.
Right. Right. And when you make it,
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when you make it, is the goal now to then put stuff on like YouTube and try to attract as much audience for that?
Yeah, I mean, that was the goal. The first one, Scotty. Yeah. It's called Scotty, the short film I made with Courtney and Drew. It's on Vimeo.
We're gonna watch it.
I hope so. It's one of those things. It's early. It's rough. There's obviously things I'd like to change about it. Mostly all on my end. Nothing that anybody else did.
Scotty with a Y or IE?
Y. Yeah, no, for that, I took my time. I was like, I want to wait so I can do this right, because I had like a real idea about what I want. I'm like trying not to be too precious, and I think I learned how to not do that way more via like sketch and like live stuff.
Yeah.
Then it's just like there's just a little bit more restrictions, a little in a good way. It's like we have this much time. Because like in Scotty's not a sketch, so I didn't have to necessarily follow as the typical structure. I could kind of like stretch a little more and like just explore like stupid little things I wanted to do.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't know. I was lucky. I met Courtney like right at the right time. She had like tons of access to really nice equipment and is works. She is like when she decides she's doing something, she's like 100% in and like really took the reins and like is a dope person to work with. So I think it's a little bit of both. You want it to be like what you wanted it to be, but you also just want to make it. So there's always compromises, and that's
Sure.
it's a little hard to learn because it's especially with some other stuff. I think maybe I've been a little more like, nope, this is what it is. Like I did like a one act play. I think luckily, and then Brian Hines directed it for me and was very like, this is your thing. Like he gave me stuff and he helped build it out, but like was very sure to make sure I was doing like the thing I wanted to do.
When did you do that?
That was like April, like 2017, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I did it about how much I hate working at Whole Foods.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've actually really warmed up to the idea of like one man, one act shows.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Seawall in Manhattan. I forget which theater it was at. It was off Broadway. It was one of those little small theaters. And it was this British dude was the first guy, and then Jake Gyllenhaal. And man, he's getting pretty good at acting.
Yeah.
Like he's not
Gyllenhaal is starting to get a hang of it.
Yeah, he's starting to get the hang of. Well, no, because it's my wife. That's my wife's crush, and so we've seen all of his like off Broadway things.
I didn't even know he was doing that.
Oh yeah, and the first one was rough. It was a little weird, and then he did one with what's her name? Did you ever see The Affair on Showtime?
No, I'm aware of it, but I've never seen it.
It's more attorney, and then the other actress, I forget her name, but he did one with her. Then that was pretty good, and then he did Sunday in the Park with George.
Sure.
Which is the one about the painter. and that was good. But yeah, he's getting the hang of it. So what yeah. So can we talk about some stuff that's going on today? I have some things that I was thinking about in the comedy universe asking you.
Sure. Yeah.
So I just listened to you're familiar with Todd Glass?
Yeah, I'm aware of. I don't like keep up.
Yeah.
I'm not keeping up with them.
No, and so my wife likes all of these podcasts, and so he said something, and I was like, I'm gonna ask Jack this because it came up yesterday. Yesterday, my wife played this for me, and so it's a podcast where Todd Glass was criticizing Jerry Seinfeld because of this joke that Jerry Seinfeld made on his most recent special. And so I'm going to tell you the story as it was told, and I'm not going to tell you Todd Glass's stance because he was criticizing him, so you'll obviously know what he's saying. But I want to hear like a real person's explanation, like a real person's take on this.
So I'm not afraid to offend Big Todd Glass.
Yeah, or our grandpa Jerry Seinfeld.
Definitely not afraid to offend him.
What is he going to do? He's never going to see this.
He's going to ask, what's the deal with that?
So the whole idea is that there was this joke that Jerry Seinfeld did, and I haven't seen it, but I guess it's a joke that he has been doing, and he did it on his most recent special. And I don't remember if he did this or not when we saw him. We took my mother-in-law to see him a couple years ago, and I don't know if he did this or not. But the joke is like, oh, people are saying all the time how their friends mean so much to them, spending time with their friends means so much to them, and then they sit there staring at their phone, scrolling like a gay French king. And so Todd Glass was saying, you should not, the word gay is now outdated. You can't use that in a joke. You shouldn't use that in a joke. As somebody who prides themselves on being a wordsmith, as Jerry Seinfeld prides himself on being a wordsmith. you should be able to come up with a better way of saying that. And the reason I want to ask you is because improv in general, but CT specifically, is pretty controversy free.
Yeah, they'll shut it down.
And it's still hilarious. Like
Yeah, for sure.
I've never seen someone curse or say something gross.
I mean, people curse. People curse.
But
I've cursed on that stage a lot.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure people are that there's cursing. It's not like children's humor. There is children. Sunday.
Sundays at 3.
Great, yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I don't think Jerry Seinfeld is like savvy enough to handle that joke. I think there is I've been watching a lot of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia again, and that has been like a bit of a reminder of like maybe my true sensibility, which is a little, I don't do edgy comedy. I don't think Jerry Seinfeld is presenting himself as above everybody,
exactly,
and as this like seer of truth and like of perspective. And so then when to drop like it's not even funny.
Yeah.
That's also the problem. It's just not that funny too.
Todd Glass says the whole premise is messed up because his premise goes, "Oh, when people say to you that their friends are so important," he goes, people don't say that.
Yeah, what? What context am I saying? Am I saying that to a friend who's not as important to me? Like, what context is that? And I don't scroll. Who scrolls through their phone with their index finger?
Yeah,
like that. Thumb. It's all one hand.
It felt like a joke that was meant for the people that are on Facebook saying why masks are infringing on their rights.
Yeah, no, that's exactly who that joke is for. It's like he literally. I saw like something on Twitter. Is like he did the everything's getting smarter but us, like about smartphones kind of joke. It's just like.
So you were saying
this whole time we've all been on Twitter making that joke this whole time.
You were saying you've been going back to It's Always Sunny. What reflections on that topic have you? Because you said that you had a connection to it.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I found that show like in high school, and it just like spoke to me in a way. I didn't watch Seinfeld. I didn't watch Seinfeld really, so it's just the idea of like chaotic negative people making a muck of the people around them. It's just, I don't know. There's still kind of nothing like it. They get away with it. They're smart. Then they started in a different time. And the older I get, the more I start saying like it was a different time, and I start to like hate myself a little bit. But like there is some idea that like that thing was popular because that's the way people talked.
Sure.
You can't ignore that. To ignore that is to like deny essentially the progress we are making. I think. Like, oh, look at it. Look at the ugly. It was bad. Like it was bad. Know it. And move on from it. Like, so to me, there is that element of the show because in later seasons, I think they handle it pretty well. Like they're pretty self-referential about the mistakes they've made. And then in newer episodes, I think they've handled some of these things like really with some class while still being crude. And I think like that is the ultimate balance, I think. And there's like I'm just going to name drop another CT friend, Casey Grambo. In a lot of discussions like this, she's like, there's a difference between being offensive and oppressive.
Yeah.
And like I hold true to that, and like if you push and you get told it's wrong, like if there's like a way to like come at it from like a decent place, or like I'm just trying to be funny, and if you get told you're wrong, accept it, and like it's when you act like you're being oppressed in yourself that you come off like a dickhead. Sorry, I've been so good about not swearing.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that's when you get into the trouble. Like, go in with some confidence about it a little bit. Just be smart. Like, don't just understand what you're saying. Like, try to have some, like, perspective. I don't know. There is a right way to do it. I think most people don't do it right and probably should avoid it at all costs. I think I avoid it for those reasons, too. It's, like, very rarely something that comes up for me because it's not really my purview, and I like to write more personal stuff. So it's like But, I laugh at that show. I still laugh at South Park a lot of the times. It's, like, fun. Laughter is the release of tension. Like, there has to be some tension there to laugh at. That's what makes Curb so good. Curb, you feel so, like confined by Larry's stubbornness and all this stuff. And when it finally kind of unravels in his face and, like, whatever, you explode with laughter. And it's like, that's what this is for. And, like, I don't know. I appreciate their ability to be on the third rail, kind of like at all times, and just kind of go with it. And to still be here. They've been here for so long.
Always Sunny.
Yeah, 15 years. They just announced they're coming back for their 15th
Oh
season.
wow. I'm sure there's a million really good examples, but I love the I feel like the Country Mac is probably
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good thing
Mac
to point
Day.
to. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I think isn't there because he's gay, and they're
Hmm.
like, oh, it's so cool that he's gay. Why don't you just be gay like him, right? Don't they say
Yeah, yeah,
something like
they're
that?
annoyed at Mac's like stubbornness, not
Yeah,
like his denial.
and
They just want to move on.
that's such a I guess it's kind of like a classy way of dealing with that. You mentioned with
Yeah,
Glass, like that's a good way of dealing with that issue, and that also in some ways, if you read into it, could be them sort of acknowledging that maybe the past episodes weren't always
yeah, that
with
like
that same.
that Mac's closetedness had been kind of a punchline and da da da, but they
Yeah,
literally say we don't care.
yeah,
We just want you to admit it so
yeah,
we can all move on, kind of thing. In a way that's like we accept you. It's
yeah.
like weird. They're weirdly being nice in the most like mean way possible. Which is that's art. That's comedy. That's
That
comedy
show
to
is
me.
so good.
Like that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff, man. Well, I appreciate you taking all this time. I'm gonna hit you with the lone guitarist questionnaire. Are you ready?
Okay.
This
Yeah.
five. So these are. Thank God I wrote this questionnaire so well. Um, I'm just gonna pat myself on the back, and it's really good. And I was worried that some of these questions wouldn't work for a person of your stature and status and
Yeah.
fame.
High. All of those things are
And
very high.
and so I'm going to ask you, and you can answer these in any way you want. You can give me one word answers, or you can tell me a story, or you can say whatever you want.
Sure. Okay.
Ready? Okay,
Yeah.
here we go. Question number one. What's the best gig you've ever had?
Um, the No Rules Show with
That
Courtney
was so
and Brian
good.
Cragen
That
and
was
Harry
so
Whitelaw,
good.
who I live with now.
Uh,
Just we and I don't know. It just was such a half baked idea. It was just so. It was like our internet. It was our group chat come to life in every way I could do.
Could you
And
describe it? Can you describe what it was real quick?
yeah, we had just like me, Courtney Dunham, and Brian Quagan have a group chat called Just Blaze, and it was originally set up for us to hang out and watch a movie and maybe do some other recreational things.
Right.
And um, it never happened. It never happened. But we would talk online every day and see each other on the weekends at the theater, and we just, or I don't know, I think I was just like we always talked about improv, and I was like I just want to do a thing where we all just like get up there and like show we know what we're doing by doing everything wrong, kind of. I think I just called it as I mean, I just don't want to go up around.
Yeah.
But and yeah, just Courtney kind of hit the ground running with it, and we found a way to flesh it out, and it just felt the most. It was like the first time I felt like I knew how to like develop a thing, how to
Yeah.
make a thing from scratch and build it out and just have fun with it. It was so much fun
It
and
was hilarious.
some
It
of my
was,
best memories on stage for sure.
and from that because it opened with a video
Yeah.
of you guys, and I forget it was either you or Brian, and the
Well, it starts with Courtney and Allie in a field doing some
yeah
stuff, some
that's
weird, some kind of weird. I don't really remember
that's
it. And it turns into a thing about us breaking rules, and
and
we're all
I remember when we thought the joke was going to be heightened, somebody took an aluminum can and put it in the trash rather than the
yeah,
recycling and
yeah,
said no rules.
no
That
rules.
was yeah, cool. Okay,
That was
question. And the show was just incredible, and it was all improvised.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We had like it was like it was like almost like Survivor in a way. It was like me and Quagan kind of went off and like came up with a couple bits to do to mess up with things and like
yeah.
a couple things little worked out, but when we were doing them, we knew we were gonna pull up our friend Josh on stage and black him out immediately because he knew he'd be doing stuff
That
like that. We
was
had like
good.
little ideas, but the whole thing was pretty
Yeah,
cool.
awesome. I could see something like that being, uh, brought to a bigger improv community or a place where,
It's been hard to duplicate in our attempts. I always
yeah,
think.
I'm sure you have. I'm sure you would have to have incredible chemistry and a lot of trust from whoever would
Yeah,
let
for
you
sure.
pull off something like that because
That
it
that
sounds stupid.
that is what was so fun about it is that like we knew we all would survive because we
Yeah,
all
yeah,
are comfortable and trusted each other kind of thing. That's like truly maybe what made it so fun.
yeah. Question number two: what is the worst gig you've ever had?
Uh, God, probably I probably like one of the last stand-up sets I ever did. I like in the middle of it, like really had this like I did like a joke. It just I wasn't my heart wasn't in it, and I was just like I did some joke about like girls being into serial killers or some like really hacky thing. In the middle of it, I just like felt my heart die, and I was like, I hate this. I hate that I think I should be standing up on stage with a microphone saying, real life, real kind of like, what am I doing here moment.
Yeah.
I don't remember it specifically. I don't know what. It's some stand-up showcase thing. I sucked. I don't think I did it again.
You gotta do some weird stuff to find out that it's not for you.
For
You know,
sure.
I mean, like you can, and I guess comedy is one of those things where it's like you have to see how far you can push yourself in any direction before you decide that that's not the
Sure.
direction for you.
Sure. And I'll admit, like, I don't really have that, like, it was in some, like, West Virginia back bar in the
Yeah,
alley
yeah,
store. I don't have
yeah.
that kind of thing. It's all been, like, at the theater. So it's really just like, my own personal turmoil on stage. I did totally blank in the middle of a stand-up set one time. It was like more of an open mic thing, so it was fine. But like mid joke, just everything was gone. I had to pull out my phone. It was really embarrassing.
Do you think this is a side? Do you think that like now, since like you are, you know, you have pretty good training and you're pretty good, that you could go into something like a funny bone and just talk about your anatomy and women's anatomy and just crack up the whole room?
Unfortunately, probably. I don't want to, but I trust that I could if I needed to.
It's as soon as you start as soon as a comedian takes the mic and starts using it as something else, you know that you're in for a whirlwind of a time.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Yeah.
Question number 3: what's the best advice you received and who gave it to you?
Mm. The initial advice from Julia was really good about staying around and kind of figuring out what I was doing. Brian Hines wrote me a note, I think, after either a sketch show or when we did the one act play before I moved for the first time, just to like, it was just some note about just do something. Like
Yeah.
it was like, kind of like the Good Will Hunting thing. It was like, get away from me, like go do do something bigger. And that was just like a nice sign of good faith or belief or whatever. I don't know if I got so much. There's so many good people there. I can't. It's hard to even Greg Tote too was such a important person to like bounce stuff off of there. It's something Julia told me in a coffee shop one time. I made her sit down with me for an hour because I was panicking about something. It's somewhere in there, I'm sure. Whatever it is, I don't know the exact answer.
Question number 4: what never fails to inspire you?
That's a good question. I think it's stuff. It is honestly stuff like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, just because of the way they made that show. It's just like they had an idea and a video camera, and
Yeah.
legitimately they filmed a pilot, and it's just they're so in control. Wes Anderson movies still just like kind of tap into something like like more of my imagination, I think, than most stuff, and still just like it's so like fundamental to like my initial like introduction to like more like adult collegey movies or whatever that still just like trigger something in me, I think.
Sure.
It's just
You
super
find that?
bad.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying that you find that through Wes Anderson movies, and I was gonna question that.
Oh. No, I mean I do love those movies. I know they get goofed on sometimes for being a little too silly.
Well, yeah, but then also what they do is they kind of bring a real surrealist point of view to
Yeah,
like a popular audience.
for sure.
You know,
Lots of those movies
because
are really funny too. Like
yeah,
Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou is like a funny, dark, serious movie. Rushmore is really funny.
yeah,
Yeah, stuff like
yeah,
that. Just stuff that's DIY. A lot of bands, like punk bands, that have like kind of made it by sticking to like punk ethos and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Fantastic. Last question. I had to modify this one because there's the guitar word in it, and I changed the word here. Question number 5: what is your favorite appropriate non-comedy comedic activity to engage in? What can you share? What can you share with the general public?
Um, Gotta go down like kind of far down the list. Going to the movies, going to the movie theater, going to a matinee on the weekend. That's kind of my treat to myself. I kind of like catch like an early Saturday or Sunday movie and turn my phone off and just like ignore the world. I guess most of my answers are probably not great for a teacher's podcast.
I think that it's really great that, let me rephrase.
Sure.
When I when I knew you were very much into doing improv comedy at the theater, but I think it's wonderful that you're exploring the side of you and leading with the side of you that's interested in writing and not just doing something that you know that you can do pretty well, but something that you want to follow because it means something to you. And you said at the top, I don't see myself making money. I'm not really inspired by anything else. I think that's great because so many times there's somebody who has the gift or has the work ethic or has whatever, but then sticks to either what's safe or what's paying the bills, right?
Mm-hmm,
And so
mm-hmm.
it doesn't seem like you have much of a problem admitting, no, this isn't paying the bills right now, but I'm good at this thing and I'm going to use this thing to also work on the writing stuff
Yeah,
and
for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, even if I eventually give up on all this stuff, I don't think it'll be a thing I stop liking or loving or doing even a little bit. I think it's
yeah.
always there is. It took me a long time to find it, my like creative side or whatever, because I was like a sports boy. But
Really?
yeah, I played hockey and lacrosse growing up and
Oh,
baseball.
you seem like a hockey guy.
Thank you. Um, yeah, I was like totally like my mom wanted me to do plays and stuff all the time. And I was very performative at home and stuff like that, and I've always liked making people laugh and stuff. But
Yeah.
it just took me a long time to find, and I'm on for the ride. I think it's been a slow ride, but I think
It's going to be slower now.
yeah, we're not slowing down. It's been slow, but we're not getting slower. So that's good.
Oh, we're stuck. I mean, with the quarantine, you're stuck on the roller coaster here. You're not
Yeah,
going
I'm
anywhere.
like stuck at the top. I'm stuck like right before though. I'm like,
Is this really what I'm?
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, and I think people will really enjoy seeing this.
I hope so. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. This is fun. It's good to see you.